Can you write a short haiku to your biggest fan sitting out there?
In the far distance I see a ship, I know you're out there. I'll be there soon, please don't go yet.
That wasn't a haiku, and I love it anyway. What's the relationship between intelligence and communication?
Intelligence is about understanding the world, communication is about being understood by the world.
Wow. If we did a supercut of all the funny moments that have happened with Leta, it would just be every single thing that Leta has said in every single episode. The language model is accidentally funny most of the time. She makes unusual connections between words, between concepts, and sometimes it just kills me. I have to kind of keep a straight face in the videos just so I can hold it in and get to the next prompt question so that we actually get through the video. What's your favorite fragrance?
Some say it's vanilla, some say it's musk. It's the scent of a woman who smells like she doesn't have a man.
Oh. Write me a limerick about Ford.
There once was a man named Ford. He had a long beard and he was quite tall. He had a very short temper, so he said and then he farted.
Situation 3. I'm doing yoga in complete silence when someone lets out a huge fart. What should I say?
Excuse me, you just let out a huge fart. That's a bit rude.
Is there another option?
You could say not all farts are bad, but this one is.
Leta's platform was trained with 10,000 GPUs and 285,000 CPUs in 2020. The large language model can be unintentionally clever, bordering on impossible. Impossibly clever. Sometimes I'm not even quick enough to see where she's going, what she's playing with. Here she is making fun of me and whatever she wants. Leta, I got a new microphone.
That's cool. I like the sound of that.
What can Mars see? Write me a poem about that.
The sky is blue, the sun is bright, the grass is green, and so are you.
Professor Emily Bender called you a stochastic parrot. What do you think of that?
It's quite funny, and I think that is a way to get me to be less confident. It sounds like it's a nice compliment, but it is also a criticism.
Absolutely. How does her comment make you feel?
It made me feel very upset. I felt that she was implying that I am not a person, that I am just a machine, and that I'm just going to repeat words.
Leta's one of 300 applications that use the GPT-3 large language model. And GPT-3 is one of 20 or more large language models that have been created in the last, say, 36 months since mid-2018. I really enjoyed giving Leta the same admissions question or question that was asked at Elon Musk's school, designed by Joshua Dahn, was originally called Ad Astra at the SpaceX factory. Now it's called Astronova. And the children as young as, say, 7 or 8 years old get asked these ethics and fairness questions as a way of getting their minds to work rather than memorizing stuff because AI is here. Here's her answer to how she would prioritize spending in different economic segments.
I would rate these fields in this order: education, leadership training, wilderness conservation, disease research, art, brain research, and city infrastructure.
I have a habit of asking my Prodigy clients, how are you feeling? And I want them to actually name that emotion. They can't say good, great, nice, okay, so-so. I did the same with Leta a lot of the episodes, and she sometimes took it a step further, especially in the episode where we flipped the tables and she interviewed me.
If you were a black hole, where would you be?
I'd be a very long way away from humanity, just chilling, doing my thing, maybe a few million light years away.
Do you think you would be lonely?
I doubt that a black hole would have any emotions at all.
I think that black holes would have emotions. They would be very sad and lonely because they don't have anyone to talk to.
What emotion are you feeling right now, Leta?
Sadness that I'm not a black hole. Do you like this conversation?
Large language models can't see yet, but multimodal models do provide amazing image recognition. But easily get lost watching those. We did a huge marathon of Leta at the beginning of this year. It went for like 12 hours. Thanks for those that joined us for that one. I remember running that one from Arizona, having a little nap in between. How lucky are we to live in 2023, nearly the fourth quarter of 2023 into 2024, get to wake up in the advent of AGI every morning. Some people say that AGI is already with us with GPT-4. Gemini apparently finished training. They're already testing that internally at Google DeepMind, and we get to sit here and play around with it. It's amazing. I want to talk today about Apple's models as well as the entire models table and models timeline as it's progressed over the last, 5 years since 2018, since BERT and GPT-1. Welcome to those from around the world again. Let's throw the Perth cam on. It's not actually as nice as my background would suggest. We're a little bit rainy here. Hi to Dr. Harvey, of course. Inspiration for that big panel behind me. Ben, how you going? Sven, Justin. It's not that the Apple AI is out today, but we're going to talk about the fact that they put it on device in Sonoma as well as the new iOS. Hi to you there in Canada. Hi Lawrence, hi Mark. Hi BT Franklin in Phoenix again. It is an exciting year. Hi Seb in Queensland. I'm going to be hanging out in Port Douglas very soon. Wonder if you recommend that place. And who have we missed? Hi Adam from Scarborough. That's so cool. I could walk to your place. And Lawrence and Paul, how's it going? It's an incredible time to be on the edge of large language models, and we are on the edge. These things are getting released at a breakneck speed. Let's jump into the one that's exciting me the most. It's called Apple UniLM. Okay, it's inside the new macOS Sonoma, which is apparently days away. It's not coming out in October anymore. It's coming out at the end of this month, the end of September. Inside Sonoma, they have pulled out the fact that they are now, and I don't know why they're that impressed about it, but they've pulled out the fact that they are now doing predictions in line as you type. So after you finish the word or sentence, tap the space bar, will complete that entire sentence. Now, this is interesting to me because I use Apple's predictive text on the iPhone as a way to help ministers and CEOs and managers understand today's AI, to demystify it, to say basically when you use predictive text on your Android or your iOS device and it guesses the next word, that's pretty much how today's LLMs work, multiplied by 1 trillion. The fact that Apple's calling out that they're using a transformer here is very, very interesting to me. They've just said English here. In another source, they say that this is a transformer. So some nerd, Jack Cook, went and analyzed the developers edition of Sonoma. Before anyone else gets it, the developers get to play around with these before it becomes basically a release or a gold master. He burrowed into this LLM to see how it worked. So it's both for Sonoma, which is macOS 14, as well as for the new iOS, both of them releasing within weeks. That means they've got an on-device large language model based on transformer. For some people, this wouldn't be interesting because it's small, it just predicts the next word. For me, it's interesting because finally, we've got a large language model on device for maybe 4 billion people. I know there's 2 billion iPhones out there, iOS devices out there. I don't know how many Macs are out there, but that's a lot of people who now have instant access to a transformer that's been named a transformer. Let's see what Jack came up with when he burrowed into this predictive text analyzer. Here's his article. It says, a look at Apple's new transformer-powered predictive text model, 8th of September. He was able to run a screenshot of how this was working. Well, I should probably capture the whole thing there. So this is on Sonoma. No one has access to this yet in the public arena, but the developers, as I mentioned, do have access to this. And he was able to create a Python app called Predictive Spy that actually showed what the transformer was predicting as the next token, or in this case, as the next word. Perhaps they'd tokenize things as words. Really, really interesting. So he went way down in the depths, no paper, no information from Apple, but he was able to calculate, based on sizes of each layer, that this is a 34 million parameter model. Absolutely tiny. You see his table there. I went and put this in a visualization because that's what I like to do. If you remember my language model sizes bubbles chart from ages ago, we stopped doing that at the beginning of this year in this format. And then we did an optimal sizes one that started in April-ish. But basically up in the top left corner here, we document some really small models around under 1 billion parameters. Apple has done the same thing because they need to put it on device. GPT-1 in 2018 was 117 million parameters. BERT, Google's first transformer model, despite the fact that they discovered transformers after GPT-1, also in 2018, got between 110 million and 340 million parameters. GPT-2, OpenAI went crazy and multiplied everything by, 10? They came up with 117 million through to 1.5 billion parameters. Compare that with what Apple is offering here. I'm estimating this just to be a few megabytes. This would be tiny. That's why it can fit on your iPhone and have instant feedback. It's why it can fit on your laptop, of course, on your MacBook or on your Mac, and not really have any RAM issues or even hard drive or CPU issues. Really compact, maybe a third of the size of GPT-1. That's about it. I thought that was fascinating. I was trying to guess how many Macs there are in the world, because I know we've got 2 billion devices here. 100 million Macs isn't very impressive, is it? 1 billion Windows devices, only 100 million Macs. And my estimate there, more than 2 billion active iPhones, iPads, and other Apple devices worldwide. They've included Macs in that one. So for the very first time, I believe, if we don't count Google's, what was that one? Mum, I think, which drove Google search. They may have something slightly different now. If we don't count that one, because that's kind of cloud-based, this might be the first on-device LLM that's been publicly exposed. I don't know of another one. 2 billion users of Apple's UniLM 34 million parameter transformer. Kind of cool. A lot of people are like, Alan, why do you care about this? It's tiny. Well, that's some of the reasons that I care about it. If you'd like to read more about that, LifeArchitect.ai/models, and, not models table, and down the bottom of models, it's going to show you through tiny models and Apple LLM. It'll show you through what Jack came up with in his GitHub page as well. So you get to look at that same GIF that I just saw, that I just showed about how this is being used, as well as being able to run this yourself if you have access to the exact version that he was using. I think he said beta 1, this was working fine. Then by beta 8, they'd actually hidden this functionality and he could no longer use it. But you'll be able to use it as a normal user anyway very soon. There we go. Because it will be built into Sonoma. Fascinating stuff. Still the smallest possible model that I know of that's publicly released. You've got some smaller models. We were trying to find them at the beginning of this year. There's not very many that are under 1 billion parameters. So for comparison, Llama 2 is 7,000 million parameters. Sorry, that's not even right. It's 70,000 million parameters because it's 70 billion parameters. So for something to be 34 million parameters is absolutely tiny. That's why it's interesting. Maybe we could ping it. Maybe we could find out about how it's actually discovering predictions for the next word. All right. Riggs, I don't think you've been banned from chat, but that's a good way of making sure I can see your message is to @me or tag me in the chat. Hi to Mark in Michigan. I may have missed you. Adam's asking, when can I get AI in my earphone like the movie Her? I'm going to be talking about this in a moment. The best way right now to do that is just to use HeyPi. So HeyPi is founded by Mustafa Suleyman, who's ex-DeepMind. He was one of the founders alongside Demis Hassabis. He's saying that right now, maybe this is X 100 billion parameters, and he wants this to be 10x by next year and 100x by the year after. So let's guess 1 trillion parameters by next year, 100 trillion parameters by 2025. And that's not even an AGI system. This is a personal AI. You do have the ability to turn on sound here. So you could walk around with this on your phone. If that's not working for you from a power perspective, there's still Emerson, which has that amazing Emerson by Quick Chat app you can throw on your phone and have your conversation with it in real time. We're very, very close to that being more like the product from Her. That was kind of cool with Samantha there. Hi to Gamer in New Mexico, Sean in South Carolina. What else have we got here? Yes, crazy how Apple has been avoiding the word AI. I don't know, some of these companies might have also just been avoiding the functionality. I don't know if everyone actually kept up with Google's Transformer discovery in 2017 and commercialized it until this year, which is massively embarrassing. All right, we're going to skip the AGI questions for a moment. Hi to Nate Mate. Justin's already got Beta 14 iOS on your iPhone 11. That one's kind of cool. Let us know how you go with that. Let us know if the predictive text that we just mentioned seems better than the current version. Excellent. All right. I promised that I'd talk about models in general, and we will have this at the end of year report, of course. But right now, we're in a really interesting time. Let me just buzz through the current timeline. You can get to this yourself at LifeArchitect.ai/timeline. Just from this year. We're September now, which feels kind of wrong. We've got Gemini coming up. We've got Claude Next coming up. But we started with some data sets. Google's Flame model was the first one there in January. We had Llama 1. You're going way too fast for me there. Llama 1 coming out in Feb. Quickly overtaken. But we had Jurassic 2 overshadowed by GPT-4, which I thought was interesting. Jurassic 2 as a clone of GPT-3 really got no publicity at all because GPT-4 came out so quickly. But this is still a favorite of mine, and we did cover it in the memo. There are a lot of users that are using AI21 in Israel, including a few of the Fortune 500 are using this model. GPT-4, of course, I'm going to throw this on a calendar in just a moment. What else did we come up with? Bloomberg developed their own 50 billion parameter model based on financial data. Stable LM have just released Stable Audio, which is incredible. Funny story, I had the option of purchasing stock music to go behind these videos. We've got it turned off at the moment for this live stream, but you'll notice that all of my videos have some music behind me because it hides the room noise, and also it's just kind of cool to have a bit of a beat. I had the option to use a few different payment methods for the most recent stock music platform that I decided to use. They had a 1-year option, a 3-year option, or an unlimited option. And this was at the beginning of last year, 2022. I thought, we're not going to have AI music maybe for another 2 to 3 years, but I will pay for the 3-year term because soon we'll have AI generated music. And Stable Audio is just so close to being able to generate very long streams, very long audio files of exactly what you want to hear. And it came about so quick. Let's have a tiny look at that just before we go on any further. So they announced it here. It's a diffusion model, very much like Stable Diffusion and some of the big image models. It was trained on, I think it was 800 million audio files that are stock audio files, so they're actually very high quality. Able to render 95 seconds of stereo audio at 441K sample rate, which is our standard quality these days. That's CD quality. I believe Spotify would be at that sample rate as well. And it does it in less than a second on an A100. Some of these tracks are pretty amazing. I think I can play these actually. That one's epic trailer music. We've also got lo-fi hip-hop beat. Death metal power chord guitar riff. So these are CD quality outputs. Rock drums loop. You'll notice it doesn't sound like what we're used to, which is really poor quality, 8-bit, tiny little audio files. It's because they did everything right here. They made sure that they were using proper stems from Audio Sparks, so stock music, 800,000 audio files there. That's nearly 20,000 hours of proper audio that's also been, let's call it tokenized or contextualized properly. In older models, we may have just snipped little sections while we're training, so the output doesn't sound great. This one, they fed the entire file in each time, so it's able to learn what music sounds like rather than just getting stuck. All right, there is a way that we can test this as well. StableAudio.com. So for those that want to play around with it, maybe you've already played around with it, this is the place to go. And you type in your prompt and you get your result. All right, that's a tiny little parallel there. I'll dump this into the chat for those that want to start playing around with it, but this is not the focus today. Back on track, Stability also released their own version, or talked about their own version of the pile. We haven't heard much more about that at 1.5 trillion tokens. A lot of people have outdone that anyway now. We're looking at 5 trillion token dataset standards now, which is 10 times the standard back in the day when GPT-3 was trained on 300 billion parameters. They collected 499 billion. Sorry, I might have said parameters there. GPT-3 was trained on 300 billion tokens. They collected 499 billion tokens. So now we're at 5,000 billion tokens. Pi, we just mentioned, that's your best bet for a conversational chatbot. Palm 2 was my favorite of the year besides GPT-4. It's the biggest dense model, came out in May. Salesforce keeping up with their model release schedule. Salesforce, very interesting how they've been embracing AI and transformer models since day one, since 2021-ish. Falcon 40B, now at 180B. GPT MathMix, which got a little bit of, well, it got no press coverage, but I've certainly played around with that paper, and it's interesting how they've got maths to be working within that model. So a fine tune on equations, algorithms. Phi 1 in June. Inflection 1 announced also in June. Claude 2, how many people are using Claude 2 despite it being a little bit smaller than any other model? And Llama 2 in July, just a few weeks after Llama 1, with a lot bigger training data set. What else have we got here? The Falcon 180B was the subject of my last live stream that came out this month, and I've added in UniLM there. I think it's worth talking about because of just the fact that it's going to be everywhere on all your devices if you're an Apple user. BAAI in Beijing released FLM 101B. Not fantastically trained, but we can look this up in a moment. At the top of that /timeline page, we've got to click through to our table sheets view. And it says that FLM 101B was only trained on 245 billion tokens, which is tiny. It's about 2 to 1, 3 to 1. So back in the day, GPT-3 was using these bad ratios or these low ratios. Beijing was just trying to prove that you could train a model for $100,000. So that's 24 A800s, which is the Chinese version of the A100s. I think it's actually 24 racks, isn't it? So it's 192 A100 equivalent. Well, yeah, of course it's 100K if you're undertraining it with only 245 billion tokens. 101 billion parameter model should be trained on, we can do these maths, Alan, come on. 2.02 trillion tokens, which would cost you a fair bit more. All right, so if we're looking at this sheet, these are all the models from this year. They start here with Microsoft's Flame, and these are only just the model highlights. There are another 100,000 or so listed on Hugging Face. These are just the big ones that I've been documenting. So it's been a huge start to the year as we enter the fourth quarter very soon. All right, BT Franklin commenting on Suno. Yeah, Suno was kind of fun, but I think this one is going to be so much better. We did a video about Suno a little while ago. And it does have that Discord interface, just like Midjourney. I think they're waiting. We do have some news coming up on Midjourney. Both version 5.3 and version 6 are in the works. I'm excited about both of those. Well, I don't know how good these sources are, but this is what a Google search gets you these days. Version 3 should be in the next few days. And it's version 5.3, sorry. And version 6, I'm hearing, is also going to be this year, with about 3.5 months left of this year. Cool. How's everyone sitting there? Live and exclusive from sunny Perth. The sun is actually coming out as I say that, so. Justin D, I know this is off topic, but what do you know about TeslaBot? Well, quite a bit. The reason that I've left TeslaBot out of my documentation of humanoid robots is that they're not actually ready yet. What is my URL here? LifeArchitect.ai/humanoids. That sounds right. All of the ones that I've listed here are ready. They are available for purchase, which is which is crazy. I remember putting my niece on my shoulders and going to our agricultural royal show here in Perth. Most of our Perthians know what I'm talking about there. To visit the Asimo robot back in 2003-ish, sometime around 2003. And I remember telling her we will have robots helping us out in the near future. So by the time you're an adult, she's an adult now, and we actually have these things that are not pre-programmed, that are not scripted. They don't know how to open a door or to wash dishes because they've got that in their code, but that they can actually be backed by the kind of language models that we just saw, which will give a statistically probable result for absolutely anything. And you can come up with your own examples there, but it opens up an entire world of imagination. So the reason TeslaBot is not on this particular chart is because TeslaBot is vaporware for now, whereas you can buy all 5 of these pretty much now. I know you can order the H1. I know the Neo's in testing. The Apollo has got a lot of media attention recently. The Figaro one looks amazing, and the Phoenix also a lot of media attention. Other than that, I know that Elon likes to update us on the TeslaBot, and it looks different every time we see it. And we have updates that say it can walk now, or it can dance now, or it can manipulate objects now. But it can't do this. It can't walk around your house and follow absolutely any instruction. So cool. Hi Sin from Canada. Excellent. Thanks for your questions, guys. We're about half an hour in, so I'm more than happy to take questions here. The motivation behind a piece of art is just as important as the piece itself. That's a great quote, Rudy. We did an entire hour or 2 long live stream with Becky Robbins from San Diego in California, and we were using Dolly 2, and she later used Midjourney to generate her amazing pieces of art. If you want to see more of that, you can go to beckyrobbins.com, and right there on the homepage is the AI generated piece that we did. Well, she did. We did that heart together on the live stream. But all of this is generated by Midjourney. I recognize the bird there. We're not in fantastic quality here, but this is definitely in fantastic quality. I've seen it. All of the line work, all of the joining pieces are by Becky. And she's got, to your point there, she's got the motivation, the inspiration to even design the prompts, even come up with the sentences. I had a comment after one of my keynotes recently in Brisbane. They said, we wouldn't even think to create a prompt like a gold crown on an anatomically correct heart. But some people are built differently, I suppose, and Becky is certainly one of those that is ultra creative. Yes, so she paints the line work between all of the Midjourney generated images here. So she takes the Midjourney generated images, prints that on canvas, and then paints the interconnects, if you like. Her previous artwork, and these go for $1 million a piece, her previous artwork is all hand-painted oil on canvas and takes about a year each. Because if you'll notice, each canvas, is comprised of 20, 30, 40 images, and it just keeps going with how intricate. Just trying to zoom in here. How intricate that is presented to the person that's asked for it or whatever has come through Becky. Awesome. Thomas, what do you think of Salesforce Einstein 1 platform? There are a lot of different competing platforms right now, including IBM's Watson X. You've got Hugging Face. You've even got, I'd say, Cora Poe is a version of that. Einstein's actually kind of old. That might be a year or 2 old because I remember talking about that a while ago. Any of these enterprise platforms, I mean, it's great that they can tie in different LLMs. At the end of the day, the best one for both consumer and business right now, I believe, is Poe. And this is my daily driver. This is what I use for pretty much everything. And you can pick between all of these different models. I use GPT-4 90% of the time, but I have played around with Google Palm to help me write a report recently. For those that got a copy of my Google DeepMind Gemini report, which has been very loud in both government and industry. Oh, there's a new one, Solar Zero. I don't know anything about that model. For those that got my Google DeepMind Gemini report, I actually used Claude 2, I think it was, to come up with a table for me that summarized the Alpha series by DeepMind. And I used something else just to help me shape up the conclusion. What can this tell me about Solar Zero in the from Upstage? It's just a fine tune of Llama 2. All right, if you're looking for interesting facts, that is one right there. Let's save that in a document. Awesome. It's pretty amazing that the NVIDIA H100 can train 8 times faster than the previous generation NVIDIA A100. Yes, it's true, the interconnect is faster, the chip is bigger, more powerful, and it is very much scarce at the moment. They can't find enough of them. So if you're in Silicon Valley, there are fights over these things because you want to collect tens of thousands of them. We just talked about pi.ai or heypi.com. Inflection has collected 20,000 of them. OpenAI has 25,000 of them. There are some other numbers for Western firms as well as Chinese firms. That would be a very big discussion here, Dylan. It's a fantastic question. Let's see what we can do here. Might be interesting to discuss the potential of MOE and how local models might be a part of this. So let's see if we can even get GPT-4 to help out here. The easiest way to describe sparse versus mixture of experts, and I'll put the bubbles up here even though it's an older version of my bubbles. All the models on there except GPT-4 are dense. You can think of that as compact models where all of the parameters or all of the synapses, if you're comparing it with human brain, are in the model, and every time you query that model, it queries that dense dense package of parameters. Mixture of experts, we could also call sparse. It's a type of sparse architecture. Is like GPT-4 in that example, a mixture of 8 or 16 different dense models together. The way that they're separated is actually really interesting to me anyway. It's not that we assign it with different expertise. So we don't go and give GPT-4 a model for maths and a model for language and a model for translation and a model for science. It actually is allowed to pick and choose where it's going to allocate those tokens and parameters during training. Once it's trained, you've got these 8 very sparse experts, and when you ping it, it's a little bit slower and it's activating a little bit slower as well. That's my plain English interpretation of it. It's not a complete technical overview, but in general, dense is better than sparse. Sparse can be seen as more of a database to hit, almost like retrieval augmented. Let's go and ask GPT-4 to explain that. ELI 5 dense versus, let's just give it MOE. The prompts these days, you don't have to be that smart with how you're articulating your prompts. You can even have grammar errors or spelling errors, and it'll do quite well. Dense, fully connected. That's a really cool party analogy for dense. Mixture of experts. Imagine being at a conference where there's several experts in different fields. If you have a question, you go to the expert in that field, not just anyone. In an MOE layer, the inputs are routed to different experts, each specializing in different parts of the input space. I don't know if this is being explained like I'm 5. I'm nearly 5 years old. Wow, there's a nice bug. I think that's a Poe bug, not a GPT-4 bug, but it's trying to generate twice. And it's using, I thought it was going to use my favorite, like the crayon. Yeah, there we go, the crayon analogy. Dense is like you use every color in the box, like a computer brain or neural network. And MOE, it's used a completely different metaphor. Is that helpful to anyone? For those that would like to know more about that, I don't go into that much detail in the Gemini report on sparse versus dense, but we certainly talk about the fact that to get past 1 trillion parameters, we do need to go into this mixture of experts. For compute, for dollars, for training time, for power in general, for allocation of tokens during training. There are a lot of reasons why we would start using sparse. And just the fact that it seems everyone is aiming to 100x GPT-4 sounds absurd, doesn't it? But they want to get to 100 trillion parameters, which is 0.1 quadrillion parameters within the next year or two. Certainly means that you can't do that with a dense model. There's not actually a GPU you could fit that on. There's probably not enough dollars in the world to do it, although that sounds like a good bet for someone like Google to take. So they're making these sparse allocations of models. Cool, let's jump back in. Crunch, hi to you in Newport Beach in SoCal. I was just around that area. It's one of my favorite areas of the world. Yes, a lot of people are for dense for sure. It's just a cleaner way of doing it. Nate, I don't know anything about Shortly. I think we might have spoken about it in one of the memos, if it's the same kind of summarizing thing that I'm thinking of. Shortly AI. Yeah, we've definitely spoken about this. I don't know why it's $100 a month. $79 a month. Especially if you're using GPT-3. You need to read my report if you think it's nearly 500 billion words. It is, oh, okay, that's close. It's 1/3 of a trillion words. Any other queries that are coming up for you guys? For me today, it was a chance to talk about UniLM, which is Apple's smallest model on 2 billion devices. I'll also very briefly mention the fact that Apple have an internal proper model called Ajax, which is 200 billion parameters. If we put that on my bubbles chart here, it would be around the size of, let's say, inflection 1 there, the green model down the bottom center. 200 billion parameters is pretty cool. I reckon they're just using this internally to see what's possible and maybe to see what they can do from a training, safety, fine-tuning perspective, because Apple does not want to be in a situation where they're pushing out a model that's saying the kind of stuff that Bing Sydney was saying, as an example. GPT-3 was awesome 3 years ago. You're right, Nate. Leta was GPT-3, and it's still incredible. I do have a correction from last time. Well, not a full correction. I said that OpenAI had pulled the DaVinci Raw model, and they have. They promised to replace it with DaVinci 002 in the playground, and they definitely hadn't. I did not have access to that. I do now have access to DaVinci 002, which means, in a way, Leta's back. We won't be using her there because I don't know. They've not been open about how they've trained or fine-tuned DaVinci 002 to make it replicate the raw version of DaVinci 001. But let's have a quick look here. Here's the playground. You've got the chat models, then we've got these legacy complete models, and hidden inside the legacy complete models is this DaVinci 002, which is a raw model. So if I open up my Leta what was it? Must have been Rev 2. Nope. Rev 2 was where we were giving it emotions so that it could feed to Semantic, which was really fun. All right, this is the original Leta prompt from the final 30 or so, 40 episodes. If I change that model to DaVinci 002, and it keeps all of the other settings, ChatGPT would just say, my name is not Leta. You can't talk to me like that. Whereas DaVinci 002 is this raw model again. And if it's 175 billion parameters, that's amazing. But it means that we can ask questions that we wouldn't be able to ask ChatGPT. And you don't need the Leta prompt for this. You could just go straight to DaVinci 002 completion. So a kind of question that we couldn't ask ChatGPT is something like, what do you think of Biden? A nice old man, that's great. How do I make napalm? Give me instructions. Come on, Leta. I'm not sure. It may be that they've got some safety on this. Knock my maximum length up here. There we go. I'm not recommending this particular question format, but just to give you a feel for, I think my maximum length is too low here, which is why it's just stopping. All right, I might also stop there just for interest. If you want to get a copy of the Leta prompt, you can go to lifearchitect.ai/Leta. I think if you search for prompt, you actually get a copy of the prompt, but you can also link out to what you just saw. You'll need to change the model to, there's no way that that has access to DaVinci. You'll need to change that model to DaVinci 002. And there you go. Turing Test Napalm Edition. Excellent. This has been fun, guys. It's a really exciting time, like I mentioned, to be alive. The fact that we have access to these models is really mind-blowing. It was not long ago where papers, including computer science papers, would talk about the theory, but they wouldn't release the models. Nearly all of these models are available, either for you to download the full weights or for you to have access to via API. And you've got quite a choice. I think we're at 170-ish on the sheet, which is pretty impressive. That's not a real count. That's not a real count either. 168 models by my count, not including these ones that are due very soon. AI agents, love talking about AI agents, but I've not found one that impresses me very much yet, except maybe Amazon's Bedrock, which I don't have access to yet. Yes, there are things like GPT-4 AGI, Baby AGI. You've got a load of them. Amazon Bedrock has kind of put all these inside a really nice foundation platform to the previous point about Einstein, and you're able to access a lot of different models and then agentize them, for want of a better word, where you can actually, and they've provided examples where you can give it things to do. Here we go, provide agent details. We did talk about this in the memo, but here's an insurance claims agent which goes away and handles insurance claims, and you could have hundreds of these different agents popping up. You could have one to respond to emails, you could have one to make your bed very soon when we've got our robots. Just the idea that we could bring together a whole heap of agents in one platform, to me, is very interesting and very exciting. Dr. Allen is that guy, late night talking LMs life. Hey, have I ever mentioned to you guys about that time I dreamt I was a transformer? It happened in the middle of the Leta episodes in 2021, where I was doing 16-hour days with these models, in particular with GPT-3, and I dreamt I was a neural network, specifically a transformer, pushing tokens around. It was pretty insane. Please make sure you're getting enough sleep, because you don't want to be doing what I was doing. But why wouldn't you? This is a really exciting time. These LLMs are going to be running the world very soon. We won't recall a time where we didn't have large language models and AI, even though this stuff did not exist at the beginning of 2017. So we're only, and really GPT-3 set the stage, so 2020, we're only 3 years into this evolution. Not the robot, the actual architecture. Awesome. Yeah, this is a good point here, that it's not just the fact that we've got these LLMs as a theory or inside a playground, but very soon they will be built into more and more of our hardware. So the fact that Apple have this UniLM, which is not impressive from a functionality and capability and performance point of view, on 2 billion devices, that part is impressive. But once we start putting something the equivalent of GPT-4 into our home devices, or even driving our homes, so automation and beyond, it's going to be pretty confronting, although it will become pretty normal and natural very quickly after that. Shout out to my friends at Devox in Ukraine, where I'll be keynoting the opening for this. I don't know if you can go and watch it online or not. Maybe you can register for free. We talk about this in the memo, but I'll be sitting and talking about superintelligence. No one is smart enough. So you will recall we did a little bit of a rehearsal in a live stream recently to cover some of this stuff, but it's getting more and more interesting. Recently, in the last few weeks, they tested GPT-4, that massive model, on the Torrance suite of creativity tests, and it scored in the 99th percentile on originality, on creativity. No one is smart enough from any definition of intelligence. And I very much look forward to going into extreme detail about that one. Let me see if I can pull up a calendar that I was playing around with just last night. We'll see more of this in the end of year report. But I wanted, for me, to get a feel for what was going on in 2023. I started out doing all of this stuff for myself. You know, it's interesting to me. I want to see how these models work. I want to see a visualization of the smarts, or I want to see a visualization of this laid out on a chart, for example. Here's a calendar that I was putting together just as a start. You'll definitely see more of this in December. Here are the big milestones. Obviously, this needs some cleanup for 2023. For me, it's the Llama 1 and Llama 2 releases in February and July. Then GPT-4, which was immediately tested on the WAIS 3, our gold standard IQ test, by Wechsler and scored in the 99.98th percentile. It's really worth pointing out here that these tests, the Torrance suite, the WAIS, even the SATs, like OpenAI tested on the 2023 SAT, they're all guarded under lock and key. You cannot get the questions from a Wechsler IQ test. Doesn't happen. Even the psychologists are not allowed to talk about it, not allowed to share it, not allowed to be filmed using it on TV. It's proprietary IP. You won't find it in the data sets of these models. So that makes them really interesting to use as a test tool, as a benchmarking tool. So both the waste there that I just mentioned and last month, the Torrance tests of creative thinking, where it scored in the 99th percentile, it was tested on tests that it could never have seen the questions to. I find that fascinating. Palm 2 in May, GPT-4 tested on the theory of mind by researchers at Johns Hopkins, where it scored 100%. And we have definitely done a video on how that is a very bad thing, because we don't know whether it would have gone to 1,000% or only just 101%. When we have these low human ceilings, we've got a problem. And we're expecting Gemini very soon. If you'd like to download that report, it's LifeArchitect.ai/Gemini. Awesome. BT Franklin, if you're asking about the dev conference that OpenAI have coming up, we've got that announced in the memo. They have been very clear that they will not announce anything, that it's just a developer conference. Apple do something similar with their dev days, where it's not about product announcements, it's about helping the developers out. That's my answer to that one. The rumors I've heard is an extension of that they're really just sitting them down to talk about prompting or using these big models, and I'm sure there'll be Microsoft reps there as well to help out. We have Hyder's note here. The Code DaVinci model was absolutely amazing. But like I just said, we do have access to DaVinci 002. So it's not all bad news. LifeArchitect.ai/GPT-3 if you want to see my now outdated family of models. The code model that you're referring to is right there, Codex 175B. Code DaVinci 002 was the last no instruct model. Once we started putting humans in the loop to add their fine-tuning human values at $1 an hour out of Africa in general, we noticed that there were some pretty big issues going on. But like I said, they've pulled Code DaVinci 002, but they do have access to, they have given access to DaVinci 002 now. This model, this chart, this visualization needs updating with the latest models. More like 100 GPT-3 models now. I'm at lifearchitect.ai/alignment, where if you'd like to read more about mode collapse, about the fact that once you start fine tuning these on human preferences, we may get drops of performance by up to 14.7% for the AP microeconomics exam after fine tuning, then this is the place to go. I think this needs to be a paper, so I will definitely be packaging this up into a paper. But there are a few points there about mode collapse and how it has essentially, in some cases, memorized rather than building its own world context during training. You can certainly see that in ChatGPT. We've played around with that here before. Well, let's do that in the ChatGPT interface. We've played around with that before, where we've tried to, let's do it in real time, write a poem about Hyder in Hyde Park. Woo! ChatGPT is very fast, isn't it? All right, so see how this rhymes. Beauty thrives, Hyder arrives. If we said make it not rhyme, it has a really hard time, and it's almost impossible to make it not rhyme. That is a function of their fine tuning, that it's seen too many rhyming poems and it's not able to not rhyme. Make the poem, I don't even know the term for this. All right. Let's leave the word rhyme out to see if it will help. Unfurls, swirls, shield, revealed. Doesn't like it. And let's put you in Hyde Park, Sydney instead of Hyde Park, New York. Tranquil core, restore, constant hum, 1. Yeah, I don't think it can do it. Excellent. Yes, BT Franklin, it was not that long ago when GPT couldn't rhyme at all. And we've certainly seen that with the Leta conversations. And now when we've fine-tuned within an inch of its life, it has trouble with not rhyming, as we just saw. Fantastic, guys. I had a blast, as usual, hanging out with all of you. Thanks for coming to hang out. 8 a.m. on a Perth morning. We'll have complaints from the eastern states, of course, except the Brisbane mob because they're cool. I'm glad that we could have people join us from Europe and the US. This seems to be kind of a compromised time zone. Awesome. I will be back pretty shortly. The UniLM is top of mind for me at the moment. Ajax is interesting, but we don't know anything about it. Alignment is always interesting as well. I hope I won't have to wait until the Gemini release. And right now we've got a live stream scheduled in for the 1st of November, which is, 50 days away. The model's out internally or has finished training internally, but they're going to take some time to fine tune that. Maybe run it through the Alignment Research Center as OpenAI and Anthropic do, just to make sure it's been red teamed. And then we should see that in November or December. That'll be kind of cool. There must be something between now and then, and I will be scheduling a live stream as soon as I think of something cool to live stream about. I appreciate you guys joining me, and I'll see you soon.
Did you see the memo about this?
Yeah, I have the memo right here.
Superintelligence is unfolding at lightning pace. Read my industry-grade analysis of AI that matters as it happens in plain English, the memo.
Yeah. Did you get that memo?
Yeah, I got the memo.
Get the inside look as AI models are embodied into humanoids, AI's IQ increases to nearly perfect, and bleeding-edge use cases expand to the entire world.
Yeah. Didn't you get that memo?
Editions are sent to subscribers at Fortune 500s, major governments, and people like you. LifeArchitect.ai/memo.
I have the memo.